Hi Vasters and Delusioners, it's Puppeteer here from Mastering Vast Forums and godlike.com.au. Just doing a little bit of a tutorial tonight to take you through a little bit of my workflow with the Deluge and my Kurzweils. I'll do some more of these later on about how I integrate everything in the studio, how we build our live sets and things like that. One of the reasons for this is I started a thread on the Mastering Vast forums about the Deluge and I just sort of wanted to show some of the Kurzweil guys why the Deluge is such a great partner to the Kurzweil synths, and also I guess just introduce you Deluge guys to the Kurzweil synths and why they are such great synthesizers and why they have such wide and worldwide renown. So I'm going to start off tonight. I'm going to give a little bit of a description about the Deluge, a little bit of a description about the Kurzweil. It's certainly in both cases is not complete. It's just we're going to touch on some of the things that we're going to use. Then I'm going to build a sound on the Kurzweil that I'm going to sequence and record back to the Deluge. Okay, so we'll move across to the Deluge first of all. This is a Deluge. It's essentially it's a very powerful sequencer with also synthesis, sample manipulation, MIDI and CV support. The thing I use it most for is for the MIDI, and that's why I bought it. But the synth engine itself is actually fairly good. Certainly nothing like the Kurzweil, but it is, it's quite capable and you do a lot of stuff. The sampling in it is great and it works very well as a hard disk recorder and live stem remixer. One of the cool things about the Deluge is it reads everything off an SD card, so you can have 32 gig or 64 gig SD card in there, and it just that's sort of the limit of your samples and sounds and stuff like that. So you can have massive projects in there. It handles lots of voices really easily. In terms of the synth section, you can use, there's a few synth modes in there. So you can either use up to two samples, up to two oscillators, and there's a range of those. You can also ring mod the two oscillators, or you can use FM mode. There's some distortion effects here, and there's also a high pass and a low pass filter, as well as a bass and treble control, and it's got a fairly rudimentary delay on it and a reverb, phaser, flanger and chorus. One of the cool things about them is that the effects are dynamically allocated, so you can allocate them to each drum sound if you want to. If you've got them set up as a drum kit to every sound, you can have its own effects. You can do it to the kit, you can do it to a synth section, and you can then also do it to the entire mix if you want to, and you can have all of those going at the same time. Okay, I'm going to move across to the Kurzweil. A couple other things, sorry, before I do that. There's a few modes. Song mode is the one that we mainly work in, which is where we set out the sounds. Clicking in a track takes you to the track editor, and you can also click on song again, and that's an arrangement editor, which is a little bit like the Ableton Arrange View. We're going to be working on Song View tonight. I'm not going to go into the other stuff. There's lots of videos on the Deluge if you're interested in finding out what they do. I'm going to take you through a few of the things in song mode a little bit later. Okay, moving across to the Kurzweil. This is the Kurzweil Forte. You can't see the whole thing. There's a bunch of sliders across to the left, bunch of buttons and an L4 wheel across to the right, and a big keyboard. The Kurzweils themselves, this instrument really started with the K2000 back in about 94, I think, which is when I started programming Kurzweils. And the architecture of the Kurzweils use a thing called variable architecture synthesis technology, or VAST. It's essentially like a digital modular synth, and the easiest way to explain it, I'll go in and show you in a program. If you look at the algorithm, you've got these algorithms that are set up, and there's lots of different ones, and each of these boxes can have different things in it, and you can redirect. You can redirect all of the synthesis and DSP however you like. The K2000 had fixed algorithms. The K2600 also had fixed algorithms, but what it did is it allowed you then to cascade up to 3 layers. So it had a much bigger number of algorithms that you could use. Starting from the PC3 and with the Forte, the algorithms now, you can basically design them yourself. You can cascade up to 32 layers deep if you want to. From the K2600 onwards, it's got a B3 mode, so it's got like a Hammond organ, which the sound itself is pretty good. The effects themselves have come under a little bit of criticism, but I think they're fairly good. Certainly a lot easier than lugging a Leslie around. The effects engines in these things are absolutely amazing. They have KDFX, which got introduced in the K2500 originally. But the reverbs in them are stellar. Delays, I haven't found any delays that are as versatile and as good as these. The phases, the flanges, the choruses are just amazing. About the only thing it doesn't do really well is pitch shifting. It does have a few unique effects like pitches, which can pitch unpitched sounds and generate tones out of them. It's got some interesting sort of compression algorithms, whole bunch of weird stuff, laser verbs, all sorts of stuff. And that sort of gets tacked onto the end of the synthesis section. So these Kurzweils are amazingly powerful synthesizers, and they're used on soundtracks all around the world. They're used in Broadway, all over the place, and the sound quality of these things is just unbelievable. Okay, so what we're going to start to do tonight, I'm going to program quite a simple sound. So it's going to be, I'm going to start with 999's clear program. Just sounds like a piano when we play. And I'm going to go into here and I'm going to edit this sound. Right, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the algorithm. So I'm going to use, in this case, algorithm 6. And I'm going to set this first one to a shaped saw. After that, I'm going to put in a 2-pole high-pass filter. And then I'm going to cascade this into another layer where I'm going to use the Moog filter, which is kind of a ladder style filter with overdrive. Sounds pretty good. Right, now one of the really cool things about the Kurzweil is its modulation matrix. Now guys that use a Deluge, and if you've got into the MIDI sequencing, one of the really cool things about the Deluge is every MIDI part that you've got has got 127 MIDI controllers that you can assign, record, step edit, do whatever you want with. The other thing I didn't mention about the Deluge is it has virtually unlimited tracks and it has unlimited track length. And each track doesn't need to be the same length. So you can have one track that's 64 notes long. You can have the track underneath it is, one is 16 notes or 16 parts or whatever. And you can have another one that goes for 5 minutes if you want to. And you can zoom in and you can change the resolution and you can change speed and stuff like that. So it's really versatile sequencer. But the one thing that's really cool is that you can essentially sequence 127 MIDI controllers per channel on this to drive your Kurzweil, your Kurzweil modulators. So from the Kurzweil side, for the delusioners out there, the Kurzweil it's got an amazing modulation matrix. So it's a little bit of a backwards way that you do it. Every parameter in here can be assigned a controller, and you can assign those controllers to as many of those as you want, and you can use. There's a bunch of internal controllers, and and it can respond to 127 external controllers. So you can just slice and dice and do whatever you want with the MIDI controllers. So we're going to go through this first of all. What I'm going to do, what I tend to do is I use a mod wheel for cutoff frequency. Slider A I tend to use for resonance. I'm going to use slider B and C for high pass frequency and resonance, and then I'm going to use slider D to change the shape saw amount. So if we go into what the shape saw does is it's a sawtooth, and then you can apply a modulator that makes it more like a sine, so it softens the whole sound off. So we'll go in and we'll have a look. So the way these work is you've got DSP control, which has got all of the parameters that we can adjust. So we can adjust the saw pitch if we want. But the one I'm interested in is the shape. So I'm not going to change the DSP control, but on the DSP mod, I'm going to go to the shape. If I hit enter and move slider D, it's automatically assigned. That's MIDI controller 23, which it says up there. And I'm going to set this up to all the way 127. So now when I move the D, you'll hear this. Right, so that's really quite easy. The other thing about the Kurzweil is that in these sources, so you've got sources and a depth controller, which is two sources controlling one thing, and it can be bipolar. You can also put functions in there, and those functions are mathematical control functions. So you can, I don't know, assign an LFO and fade it in with a mod wheel, or you can multiply two mod wheels to two LFOs together, or do all sorts of weird stuff, weird and wonderful stuff. Too much stuff to go into. There's about 1,000 pages of manuals on the Kurzweil website if you want to read them, and I recommend the K2600 manuals if you want to read it. But yeah, lots and lots of modulation possibilities. Okay, so next I'm going to go across to the high pass. I'm going to do the same sort of thing. So we'll set the high pass frequency quite low. So quite low, I think this. So I'll set it right down the bottom, and then I'm going to adjust this with slider B, which is MIDI control 13, which is important later. Oops, what have I done? Right, and then I'm going to turn this up to about 10,800 cents. So that should take the entire sound out. Alright, so there's a high pass filter. I'm going to also, I'm also going to assign the resonance to slider C. C. And then I'm going to give this 12 dB of resonance. Okay, that's the first layer done. I'm now going to go and create another layer. The other thing, because the Forte and the PC4 have got a full FM synth in them, so you can import DX7 patches into these things, for example, and there's a whole DX7 per layer on these things. But there's also FM operators that you can use in place of some of these. So, but let me just do a new layer. Okay, back to the algorithm. And yeah, so if I show you in here, you'll see that you've got FM operators here, FM saw operators, triangle operators. So yeah, you've got lots of stuff. Anyway, what I want to do here is algorithm 105. And you can see on the left here, this means it's cascaded from the layer or from another layer. And we're going to use this alt input when we use layer 1. So just go back down to layer 1 for a second. One of the things I need to do is turn the amp off. So if I just go to DSP control, go down to level, turn that right down. So the way that this works is that whatever comes out of the amp will always go to the outputs, but it will also go, it can also get cascaded. So if you just want to hear, so you can have parallel processing, so you can have parallel things, or by turning the amp down, you can have them serial, which is what we're doing in this case. Okay, so here I'm going to put in the 4-pole Moog low pass filter, which is a cool filter. Again, let's take this right down, and I will This is DSP mod. So on this one here, you'll see that you've got there's a drive here somewhere. So on this one here, you see there's a drive. So this drive is really quite nice. So I'm going to put a little bit of drive on there. Just go to the DSP mod page on the frequency. Assign this to mod wheel and turn this up. Go back and have a look at that drive again. So nice warm drive on this effect, on this filter, sorry. You got key tracking and velocity tracking if you want it. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm not going to assign envelopes to this, so you can if you want. But what I will do is I'm going to assign the resonance to the slider A, and let's put this at 18 dB. So yeah, these the filters on these can certainly howl. They can go to much higher resonance than that, 36 dB, which is yeah, it's lots. So 18 dB is more than enough. Okay, let's just assign some effects to this while we're at it, just to show you guys some of the effects on it. Effects. Okay, so we've got insert and there's two global auxiliary buses. You can assign effects per layer. So we'll just start on, you like to build them, so we'll just start with a reverb, but let's just edit this and do some more with it. Okay, so I'm going to change this reverb to one that I really like. My Dreamy 481, it's my favourite reverb on this. And then you can go in and you can edit these. So I'm going to make this 30% wet. I'm going to take this down to 1.5 seconds. You've got a lot of other parameters here that you can do. So put this at 1. And yeah, we'll leave those where they are. Cool. Okay, then I can get out of that and I can add another one here. So we might put let's go and find some delays. All right, 4-tap delay BPM. Lots and lots of delays. So we'll just do a 1/8 delay now. Nice and simple. And let's put, I don't know, let's put some sort of modulation effect on here. So choruses. Nice flanges. Nice 3D flange, all right. So we'll do this for this part of the program. So let's go out and we'll save the effects. So let's just call this, I don't know, Deluge Demo or something. Save that. I don't want to get out of that yet. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put an ARP on this because I want to record the arpeggiator later. Where are we? So let's just put this, I'll just turn this on. Yeah, and put this on to Alright, so that's there's lots and lots of options there. You can build your own art patterns and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, let's get out of that for now. Let's save this as, again, Deluge Demo. Unused ID, so save that. Okay, so now what we've got is a sound that we've got the okay, so now I've got a sound with the mod wheel that is the high frequency, or the low pass filter frequency. Number controller 12 is the low pass resonance. 13 is the high pass frequency. 22, I think it is. Hang on. So yeah, 13, 22, and 23. So they're the MIDI controllers that we're going to use. Okay. I'm now going to move across to the Deluge. And the first thing that we're going to do is, this is a new pattern that's there. And I'm going to turn this track into a MIDI track because I want to record these sounds into the Deluge. So with the arpeggio. So I've got the Kurzweil is following sync, as is I've got Ableton following sync. Ableton's doing some routing for me, but basically, yeah, go through it. Anyway, let's just start this off. Did I record anything? No, I didn't. All right, so what I've forgotten to do here is I need to learn these keys as channel 1. So that's, now that they're flashing light, they've been learnt. So this is now channel 1. So let's just record again. All right. So now we've got some notes recorded across here in the sequencer, and you can. That's how easy it is to scale in and see what we want to do. So let's make this pattern a bit shorter. Let's make it to 4 bars. So now I should be able to play this back. Okay, so that's recorded the arpeggio of that, and that was then just playing back the Forte. Okay, now the cool things that I can do is these buttons up here for the Kurzweilers are, they reassign these 2 gold buttons. Okay, so the first one that we've got here, I'm going to leave the level and pan alone, but cut off. So what we can do for this one is we can press and hold it, and then we can set the controller for this knob. So mod wheel is the first one. Resonance is number 12. And then I can move across to, I'm going to take control of these 2. So this one here is going to be 13. This one is going to be 22. And then this one here is going to be 23. Okay, so all of these are now assigned, and I can, so if I play this back, I can now control that sound. And of course, all those knob movements can, they can all be controlled, or they can all be recorded. You can step sequence them, so I can go in to these and I can hold down this and I can set different notes there. And they will, so I can step sequence every single note if I want to. The other thing that I can do, if I, oops, sorry, jump back to MIDI. If I go back to song mode, I can make another MIDI track and I can assign it to 1A. this is also MIDI track 1, and I can either put notes on here and swap between them, or I can put controller data on separate tracks. So I can have multiple tracks in the song mode. So I can, maybe I've got 5 different, you know, song phrases here, and then I can have a whole bunch of different controllers and trigger them at the same time. So I can have, suddenly I can get a lot of variation just on here. But in this, what we'll do is this first one here, let's just record a little bit of automation. So what's going on here? Oh, it's forgotten them for some reason. It may be because I'm running one of the betas. So well, it might have been because I swapped out a synth and then came back. Okay, so let's record now. All right, so all that's now recorded into the Deluge. So the next thing that we can do is let's create another track, and I've just got to make sure I can remember how to do this because I don't do it all that often. I go record. Record. Okay. And, right, so if I click this on audio 1, and then if I go learn an input on this one, so I've set this up to record a stereo input, which is what I want. So this 4th track that I've just created here is going to be an audio, it's got something called an audio clip. I just need to step over to Ableton for a second. Let me, oops. Oh. Just step over here and show you what I'm doing in Ableton. So I've got the audio coming in on, I think, so the audio is coming in on track 4 here, and I've got this send set up to send it out. So out 5 and 6 goes to the Deluge. So I'm just going to turn this one up. This is going to send a signal to the Deluge, which I can now record. I've just switched back. So I've got the Ableton sending to the audio to the Deluge. So what I can do now is I can set up audio, like they're called audio clips on the Deluge. And you do this by hitting record, holding it. This shows you what's armed, and then press the track and press select. This sets this track up as an audio track. Okay, then you can learn, and I've set this to stereo, so you can go left, right, stereo, balanced inputs. You can resample the output. But I'm going to go stereo. With the dot, it means it's monitoring, but I'm going to turn monitoring off because I'm monitoring anyway. Okay, press enter to select. And then basically what we do is you hold down the record button to see what's going to record. It's flashing. That one I don't want to record. Okay, and then I can play. So this one I don't want to play. So what's happening now is it's playing the Forte. The Forte is coming back into Ableton, getting sent to the Deluge. So now I can press record and press the button, and then on the next cycle it'll pick up this track, and this is where it's going to start recording. Okay, so this has now recorded the audio, so I can turn the MIDI off. So these are the mute buttons. So we're now hearing, this is the waveform of the file. So you can zoom in on it and have a look at and scroll through the waveform. It's a bit of a crude display, but you can certainly go into it, and you can do looping things and all sorts of stuff like that with it. So this is essentially the way that we work with the Deluge and a lot of our hardware. So we can sequence it either on the Deluge or on something like Ableton, or I can just play things in and record it. But they're generally sequenced straight off the Deluge. We send it out to the synths. We do all the controller modification, and we'll make multiples of these tracks. So we might have, I don't know, maybe 8 different note patterns, and then we might have a bunch of controller patterns, and we can tweak those and bring those in as separate tracks. What we can then do is that we can arrange them. So if we go into arrange view, for example, what we can do is we can arrange these tracks here, and you can have different ones, and you can go in and then you can edit these tracks, which I can't remember how. So this one here is now a unique track, and you can go in and you can actually edit it. But that's sort of getting a little bit beyond this. But we normally operate in song mode, so we might have 30 tracks down here, and they're grouped by colors. So they might be, a bunch of drums, a bunch of bass sounds, a bunch of analog synth sounds. We'll use that, and we usually have something else alongside it, whether that be an Electribe or the TB03 or something like that we can tweak live as well. So we'll tweak that over the top of it, and this really forms the basis of our patterns that we use live. And then on top of that, we have stuff that we can also tweak live. I mean, we tweak this live, and there's lots of cool tweaking that you can do on this, because now that they're in the Deluge, this track I can now use the Deluge's filters on, or the Deluge's effects on it, or whatever. I can use stutter effects and things like that. I can mute parts in and out of this. So this really is the brains behind it, and I'm using the synthesis power of the Kurzweils to bring it in. So look, I hope that this has given you a little bit of an introduction and why I think the Deluge and the Kurzweil marry so well together. The Kurzweil is an amazing sound generating beast with so much modulation that you just, like you can modulate modulators and all sorts of stuff. And the Deluge is an amazing brain. It's the sequencer that's ideally suited to the Kurzweil, because it can take advantage of sequencing all of those, sequencing all of the modulation sources that are on the Kurzweils. The Kurzweils also support 16 channels. You tend to run out of effects before you run out of MIDI channels. So they've got limited effects hardware. The Forte is the most generously endowed of the Kurzweils with effects. I think it's got 32 effects units on it. I could be wrong there, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, you've got a lot of processing power and pristine audio production path with the Kurzweil, with an amazing sequencer with the Deluge. So look, we've opened up a subforum at the Mastering Vast forums, which is https forums.godlike.com.au. For all the Deluges there, we've started putting up my presets on it, and there's going to be some more samples in the future. There's, of course, gazillions of Kurzweil sounds, which I'm also putting up. But I'm trying to inspire a little bit of discussion about how to use, particularly how to use hardware with the Deluge. There's a lot of people out there that are doing some amazing things with the synthesis engine, and it's a pretty good engine. But I think the real potential of the Deluge has really just been able to integrate everything else from your studio into the Deluge. And I had to do some more tutorials on this and more advanced stuff, particularly on the sound design and, you know, a little bit more how we work in building tracks and things like that. So stay tuned. We will be bringing both more Deluge tutorials and, of course, Kurzweil tutorials again. As you can see, I've got you know, a better camera setup than I used to have. So hopefully I'll continue to go through and be able to bring you all some, you know, more great learning materials. So take care all. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all again soon. Ciao.